Hello. We are having some technical difficulties, so our Teach Group account is not able to host a live stream. Instagram changed their rules, so you have to have 1,000 or more followers to be able to host a live stream. So I'll be doing this from my personal account, and we will upload it to the Teach Group account and other social media accounts after the workshop is concluded. So thank you guys for coming. I'm going to give everybody just a couple minutes to get here just because there was some confusion. So I'll start out by introducing myself. So I'm Julia. I am a licensed pediatric speech therapist at the Teach Group. I've been working here since 2022, so a little over 3 years. I graduated with my bachelor's from James Madison University in Virginia, and then moved to Knoxville to attend the University of Tennessee, and I graduated with my master's degree in 2022 and came straight here. And I love this environment. I love my coworkers and my families that I work with, so I've just stuck around, and I've gotten the opportunity to get some really valuable experience and collaboration with my teammates here. So I'm going to get started with our workshop today. So we're going to be talking about augmentative and alternative communication, or AAC. What it is, I'll give you guys some examples of different types of AAC, and then we will move into some strategies for parents or other professionals who are working with or supporting children who are using AAC. So AAC is pretty much anything that we use to support verbal communication. So there are lots of different types. I do have a couple of resources that I can share with anyone who's interested in them. This is not mine. I did not create it. I just found it on Google, but I think it's a pretty good visual. So we have our types of AAC. There's unaided AAC, which is anything that we can use just with our bodies, any ways we can communicate with our body or with our voice. So intonation, sign language, using gestures, so pointing, that is augmentative and alternative communication. It adds to our verbal communication. Other things like actions. I have one child that I work with who he does use AAC, but he also requires a lot of sensory input. So he doesn't know how to ask for that verbally. He will come up to you, and it seems like he's being aggressive. He'll push you, and he'll kind of tackle you sometimes. And it's because he wants to squeeze. So we added a button onto his AAC device that says, I need a big squeeze. He's not really tackling or pushing so much anymore. He knows that he can communicate that need through his AAC device. So sometimes we can add aided AAC in addition to unaided AAC to make communication more functional. So aided AAC would be adding equipment or adding objects in addition to our body to support communication. So we can use objects, like, for example, if your child walks up to you with this object, that probably means I want to leave or I want to go to the car. They're trying to communicate something, and they're using an object to help them get that message across. Another thing that we use a lot is picture cards. So I have some examples I'll show you guys in a little bit. We can use communication boards. So those are examples of lower tech AAC. They don't have any technology involved, but they are things that can, travel with the child, can be customized to the child to help them share the messages that they're trying to communicate. Then we have some high-tech AAC. So there are things like speech-generating devices. There are ways that you can record your own voice or record parts of shows that children listen to repetitively, or you can use a keyboard to type out your messages. So I'll show you guys some examples of those in just a second, but I want to go into who AAC is for and why it's so important for children who have communication impairments. So I just want to start off by saying AAC is really for anyone. All ages can use AAC. Like I said, those unaided forms of AAC, we use them every day. We use gestures every day. We use facial expressions. We use like, ooh, I'm communicating that I'm tired. I'm not verbally saying I'm tired, but you know what that means. So those are examples of unaided AAC we use every day. So it's not just for children. It's not just for people who have communication impairments. That's when we get more into aided AAC use. But it is important to know about unaided AAC because we need to pay attention to our children when they're using that form of communication. So like I said, AAC is for all ages. We're going to be referring mostly to children. I'm a pediatric therapist, so that is the experience that I have, but you can apply these strategies and the use of AAC to older people as well. So typically we use AAC when children are experiencing frustration or low confidence with communicating, if they have oral motor difficulties, so they know what they want to say, but their brain just isn't able to translate that to their muscles in order to get the message out. Children who have limited understanding of verbal language, it can really help with understanding other people's messages. Children who have a limited expressive vocabulary, so it can give them some models of specific vocabulary that they can use to make their messages more clear. Children who have difficulty with word retrieval, so again, they know what they want to say, they just can't find the right words to get that message across. And we also use it a lot with children who have difficulties with social interaction. So AAC can really help to make the connection between words, pictures, and the meanings behind them and how we can use those to engage with others. There's also something called Gestalt language processing, which you don't have to be diagnosed with autism to be a Gestalt language processor, but those things often co-occur. It's just a different way of acquiring and understanding language. That will most likely be a separate workshop. I would love to give you guys some more information about that, but I want to try to stick to our schedule as best as I can. So Gestalts usually look like big chunks of language or memorized phrases or sentences that a child has heard repetitively, and they'll use them maybe not with their intended meaning being the literal meaning of what they say. So you might have a child say, peekaboo, I see you, and that might indicate that they want to play peekaboo, but it also could indicate, the feeling that you get when you play peekaboo, like, oh, that surprised me, or we cover our eyes when we play peekaboo. So them using that phrase might also mean like, oh, I'm covering my eyes because it's too bright. So that's kind of an overview of Gestalt language. The words that a child says or the phrases that they use may not have the literal meaning of the words that they say. Their intended meaning might be something different. Again, I would love to have a separate workshop just on Gestalt language processing. So AAC is so important for children. There are various forms of AAC, like we said. We use unaided AAC every day. There's high-tech aided AAC. There's low-tech aided AAC. I will show you those examples in just a second. So it's really important to find the form of AAC that is going to benefit your child the most and meet their needs in the most effective way, which your SLP can help you with. AAC can help, like I said, link words and phrases symbols and pictures to their meaning to increase a child's understanding of vocabulary. They can support learning new vocabulary. They can support a child in expressing vocabulary. Sometimes a child knows what they want to say. Like I said before, they just can't think of it or they just can't get it out. So if they have that model in the form of AAC, that can help them access it. Sometimes AAC can be really important if a child is not able to use their voice effectively. So like I mentioned before, there are some speech generating devices that either use synthetic speech or recorded speech. So you can actually record yourself, you can record the child, you can record shows that they're interested in. And this can customize the AAC system to that child to help make it more motivating and more interesting for them. So it's going to encourage them to communicate more, right? If what they have access to is interesting to them and relates to them. It can increase confidence. That synthetic speech or recorded speech can also encourage imitation of verbalizations. So I like to record very silly and sometimes kind of annoying voice recordings on some of my students' AAC devices. So I have one that goes womp, womp, womp. So I have gotten so many students when something bad happens, you know, their snack falls on the floor or someone takes their toy, they'll look at me and go womp, 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 because they heard it on their AAC device and it's, you know, a silly sound and they've been encouraged to, you know, imitate it and now they're using it functionally. Again, talking about Gestalt language processing, using AAC can help parents kind of investigate and figure out what the meaning behind a Gestalt is, what the child is truly intending to get across when they're using a Gestalt. So let's look at some of the examples that I've pulled out for you guys, and then we'll get into some strategies that parents or other professionals can use with AAC users. All right, so I have some examples over here. We use, in most of my sessions, a visual schedule. So this tells the child what to expect. They can make choices on this schedule. It really helps them transition and, maintain engagement in activities. So these visual supports are a form of AAC that are really helpful. I use AAC to help with self-advocacy, so teaching self-advocacy phrases. Sometimes we can see behaviors like pushing or screaming or getting really anxious around other children because we don't want to share our toys or because we want to keep our own space. So these self-advocacy phrases, like I said before, low-tech AAC, you can customize them to the ways that your child needs to communicate. But instead of pushing, we can tap, move back, please. Or we can say, don't touch. Or if someone takes our toy, instead of screaming or pushing them down or grabbing their toy, we can say, give it back or put it back or I want to do it. We have some low-tech AAC cards that can help teach the concept of turn-taking, teaching other concepts, wait and go, some visuals that can help us make choices. And we will also get into our high-tech AAC, which I think is what most people watching are going to want some more information on. So this is Snapcore by Tobii Dynavox. We use a lot of Tobii Dynavox. They have a lot of different page sets, so you can really, really customize it to your child's needs. So something that we can do here is customize with specific pictures, real-life pictures of objects that a child likes, dislikes, people that they communicate with. You can add your voice recordings on here. So I'm not sure if I have the womp, womp, womp on this one. I don't think I do, but I do have ta-da! So it can get a little annoying if you hear over and over again, but it's a functional way for your kid to engage with you and say, ta-da, look at this, Mom, or look at this, Dad or Grandma, whoever. You can also add in pictures of specific people. So I've got my picture in here.
Julia.
So sometimes we have kids who overgeneralize words. This can help them use more specific vocabulary. So a lot of times I'll encourage parents to send in pictures of family members so we can practice, hello Julia versus hello Mom, or help me Dad versus help me Julia, instead of, calling everyone Mom. So AAC can be really helpful with so many different things, and especially this high-tech AAC, you can really customize it to the child. You can add their gestalts in there, any, lines from shows or movies that they really like, any repetitive phrases that they use, and you can use AAC to kind of shape it into something more functional. So I'm going to get into some strategies. I'm really trying to stay on my time limit here, but there's a lot that I want to share with you guys, so we might have to do a part 2 to get more in depth into some of these things. So we'll talk about some strategies. I do have another resource here. So this is something that I created last year. It is a parent handout for getting started with AAC. That's what this workshop is kind of built off of. The outline kind of comes from that handout. So that will also be available as a resource if you're interested. I can send you over an electronic copy. So some strategies for parents. If we have low-tech, high-tech AAC, it doesn't matter. This will apply to anything. Your device or your picture sets should go everywhere the child goes. They should have access always to their AAC system, whatever it is. Sometimes children don't want to use their AAC. We don't want to force it on them. So if they request a break or, push it away, again, using that unaided communication, using a gesture, we want to pay attention to that. We can give them a break, but we want to make sure that the device is immediately accessible again if the child wants it back. So we're not going to lock it away in a cabinet or put it really high up on a shelf or leave it in the car, even if the child wants a break, because when they're done taking a break from their AAC and they want it back, they need to be able to have that back. If a child can't communicate, with their voice and get across what they want, they need that extra support so that they can communicate with you. Again, if we have high-tech AAC, we want to make sure it's charged. If we're using pictures or picture boards, then we want to make sure the child has maybe multiple copies of those, so you can have one at home, one at school, one at grandma's house, so that they always have access to that communication. This next one I think might be the most difficult for parents to implement for a couple of different reasons. So first of all, it takes some effort. And second of all, it can get a little bit irritating. So we want to allow free exploration of AAC devices or picture boards, whatever type of AAC you're using. We want the child to be able to use it, look through it, explore it, experiment however they want to, because that's how they learn. So even if that means pressing the same button over and over and over again, like that ta-da, 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 can get a little irritating, but it's motivating for your child and it's keeping them engaged in the device, and they're going to want to explore it more if they find icons like that or sounds like that really interests them. We also need to honor any attempt at communication and then expand upon it. So this is where that effort comes in. We really need to pay attention to the context of the communication and then improvise. So if we are working on a craft and a child says, like, cat to me, and we're making a dinosaur, something completely unrelated, I might say, oh, the dinosaur has a friend that is a cat, and we might draw a cat and incorporate a cat into our craft. So what the child selects on the device or through pictures may not be relevant to what you're doing, and it may not have been an intentional attempt at communication, but we're going to model it and kind of shape it into a functional attempt at communication by improvising. And I just improvised that example. It wasn't the best example, but it takes some practice, and sometimes your improvisations are going to be better than other times. It's going to be easier sometimes, just depending on the context and what the child selects. But you always want to try to make it somehow linked to what you're doing and somehow linked to what you think the child might be trying to communicate. And then we're not ever going to force a child to touch a picture, to touch a device, for a couple of different reasons. We don't want them to rely on us to initiate communication. So some parents, often parents are tempted to use hand over hand and kind of push their child towards the device, or make them press a specific button or touch a specific picture. That's teaching the child that they need you to start that communication. So I'll get into what we can do instead of that, but we're not ever going to force a child either physically or by telling them, hey, now you touch this, or give me this picture. We're not going to do that. We're not going to add extra pressure onto them. What we can do instead is model without expectation. So if you think about it, if you just drop down a device in front of a kid, here you go. They don't know what to do with that. They're not going to use it. They might explore it. They might do that irritating thing we talked about earlier. Ta-da, 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 ta-da. They might explore it and press the same button a bunch of times, but they don't understand how they can use it to truly communicate. So your job as a parent or as a professional would be to model your own communication throughout the day, without expecting the child to respond, without expecting the child to use the AAC imitatively, or expecting them to respond to you through AAC. You can also narrate what you think the child is trying to communicate. So you can pick an activity, and, if you see some of those nonverbal forms of communication, like, you can use the device to say, I feel tired, or you can say, oh, I'm sleepy, or I'm bored. Again, it really depends on the context of the situation. You know your child better than anybody else does. So just try to kind of try to decipher what the intent behind their communication is, even if it was unintentional. And then just keep modeling. So model without expectation. They're learning from you just modeling, even if it seems like they're not responding, paying attention. If you make it fun and you're modeling in situations that are exciting and important to your child and that are relevant to them, they are paying attention to you, they are learning from you, and you're teaching them what the device can do and how to use it just by using it yourself. Another thing that is very difficult to do once you're starting to support somebody with an AAC system is changing from asking questions to making comments. So asking questions can add pressure on a child. That is not modeling without expectation. So we want to stay away from phrases that are commands or questions that add pressure. So we don't want to say now you press the button, or can you find ice cream, or can you touch turtle? Stay away from those questions and make them more comments instead. So, I'm looking for ice cream. Oh, I like turtles. And again, that's modeling that vocabulary. That's going to show them how they can get to that vocabulary, how they can use that vocabulary, without them having that expectation or pressure put on them. they're going to stay engaged longer. They're going to be more motivated to try it on their own if they feel like they're not being forced. And then another thing that's super important is customizing AAC systems. So like I said before, including real pictures of important people that the child is going to communicate with frequently, including voice recordings, including pictures of toys, foods, places that your child likes, that they don't like. When we communicate, it's not always positive. Sometimes it's, ew, carrots, I hate those, or ugh, this is not fun anymore, I'm bored. We want them to be able to share those things too, even if it's not always, a positive message. So we need to give them opportunities to share things they like, things they want, things they don't like, things they don't want, so that they can really feel that, self-determination, that they can advocate for themselves. And then there's also so many ways that you can include personal information that your child might want to share with others. So, their age, their name, their favorite things, favorite color, things like that. You can add their favorite songs or favorite books or things like that. Again, into low-tech AAC, some picture boards, or into high-tech AAC with a speech generating device. I'm going a little longer than I intended, but there's so much information to share, and AAC is so diverse, and there's so much to learn about it. So just going over the basics is really difficult for me, but I'm trying. So I want to take a few minutes to answer some questions that we had sent in, and then I will kind of summarize and go over our key takeaways one more time. And then we will talk about some upcoming things and where you can find this recording after it's finished. So some questions that we had. Will AAC keep my child from speaking? The short answer is no. Research has shown that it actually increases verbalization in children. And aside from that, we don't need to use verbal words to communicate effectively. So if we are staying away from AAC because we're scared that it's going to hinder our child's need to verbally communicate, we're really just keeping them from communicating in general. We're kind of putting a roadblock there. So AAC in any form is kind of like a bridge to communication. So a lot of the kids that I have used AAC with do become more verbal. Some of them have stopped needing AAC. Some of them will need it throughout their lives. But for all of them, it has increased their functional communication. So they're able to share things with me, with others, with their family. They're able to make requests, ask questions, because they have this bridge and this support that they need. So it does not hinder verbal communication. And aside from that, it supports communication in general. And it is a necessary support for a lot of kids with communication disorders, whether that's understanding communication, expressing communication, or, with social communication and interacting with other people. Another question that we received was, how do I get started with AAC? Kind of asking about the process of getting a device, specifically a speech generating device. So that is a great question for your speech language pathologist. There are a lot of different avenues that you can take. You can go through insurance to get funding for a device. There are some other programs that will help finance a speech generating device. It really depends on your situation and your child's needs. We have to be able to justify the need for a speech generating device. And then there are also some more affordable options, so that low-tech AAC, your speech therapist can help you create some pictures or some communication boards that would be helpful for your child and benefit them. And they can also talk about kind of how we can go around insurance and look at more affordable options for high-tech AAC if needed. So, like I said, we just, as an example, we go through Tobii Dynavox a lot. They have some really great programs. Sometimes the co-pays that we get back from insurance are astronomical, and, you know, families can't always afford that. So we will always discuss some other options that are more affordable to help your child get access to that AAC system. So not a great answer, I know, because it kind of depends, but your speech therapist will be able to help you on a more case-by-case basis with getting started with a device, choosing the type of AAC that is best for your child, and then helping with, you know, training you to use the system, training you to use the device, customizing the AAC system. It can feel like a lot, but your speech therapist can really help you with those specifics. All right. So I'm going to just quickly summarize our key takeaways. So when we're getting started with AAC, we want to make sure that the system is relevant and motivating for your child. So we want to customize it to that specific child. You're going to model your own communication without expectation, without putting pressure on the child during daily activities, because how would they know how to use that or any AAC system if they're not shown and taught how to use it? And why would they use it if no one else is using it, right? So if they see like, oh, this is a way that mom or dad or sister or Miss Julia can communicate with me, they're going to be more likely to use it. We're not going to use hand-over-hand prompting. That can hinder independent communication. They might think that they need you to initiate communications. And we're also going to honor any form of communication, so gestures, verbalizations, facial expressions, actions, AAC use, verbal words, vocalizations. So, you know, that means no, right? Or that means yes. So we want to honor those things instead of, again, placing the pressure on the child to use a specific type of communication. We want to meet them where they're at and support that. And then even if a child communicates something through AAC that seems random or maybe even accidental, we're still going to expand on that communication by providing them a functional model. So, you know, that self-advocacy board that I showed earlier, you know, if it's just laying on a table and the child, you know, hits it with their hand, they're not even looking at it, but they hit it and they hit move back, please. I'm going to say, oh, move back? Okay. And I'm going to move back. I want to reinforce that idea that, you know, this does something. If you use this, if you touch this picture, something happens. Like you're communicating something with me. So even if it seems random or accidental, we're going to improvise and try to link their communication attempt back to something that's relevant, or we're going to honor the communication attempt anyways. And expand upon it with a functional model. That is all I have for you guys. I do think I went over 20 minutes, so I apologize, and I apologize for the technical difficulties. I'll get this recording uploaded as soon as I can. We are going to be having monthly workshops hosted by different therapists at the Teach Group, so some will be hosted by speech therapists, some will be hosted by occupational behavioral therapists, and we will update you guys as we schedule those. These recorded workshops are going to be posted across our social media platforms, so we're going to upload to YouTube, we'll have it on our Instagram, LinkedIn. If I can figure out how to log into our Facebook, it'll go on there as well. And we'll also post a little snippet on TikTok. So look out for those. If you weren't able to attend today and you have any questions about anything I went over or want any information, please reach out to that socials@theteachgroup.com email account, or you can message our Teach Group Instagram account. And then I will be putting out a link for kind of like a review of the workshop. So I'll be posting a link on our Instagram, and you can leave suggestions, comments about the workshop, as well as provide your email if you're interested in the workshop resources that I showed during today's video. All right. Well, again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. Hopefully we'll get that sorted out before our next one. And I also apologize for going over my time limit. But this was our first workshop, so we'll keep refining and, working out the kinks and all of that. So I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you for our next workshop in September. Bye.